Hello learners, welcome to the course BSW 041 Understanding Tribals. Last week we discussed about the meaning and concept of tribes, nature of tribes, how tribal studies have evolved as a discipline and its relevance in the present day context. And lastly we discussed about the challenges regarding the tribal studies. And this week we are going to discuss about Unit 2, the various definition and perspectives. After going through this unit, the learner would understand the concept of tribe. He would also understand what is tribal studies within the broader social science framework, and also this unit would help the learner to understand the various perspectives of tribal studies. We all know tribal people inhabit in diverse cultural, environmental and geographical conditions and having distinct biological identity. The tribals with diverse ethnic and cultural identity have been living in different parts of the country for centuries. They adjusted themselves with peculiar ecological conditions of the area and started the way of life suited in their respected ecosystem. The tribal studies have been carried out in India since the British rule by the British administrators, and thereafter it was taken up by the missionaries, tourists, welfare workers and anthropologists. Now the area of tribal studies has gained the status of interdisciplinary relevance. It draws different disciplines together into a commonly scholarly quest for understanding of different aspects of tribal studies and their societies. Now let us look at the history on tribal studies. In India, history is written more about kings, palaces and temples. History in India is always tended to be elitist. So historical documentation are available about the kings, their palace, lifestyle and dynasty. Even whatever documents on the socio-cultural and economic history of the people are also focus on the reign of a particular king, the palace and its surroundings. Since the documented part was supposed to be found in and around the palace, it was erroneously believed that the undocumented phenomena will be explained by the documented one. However, whatever the outcome of such studies, one thing was very clear, that even these studies did not cover tribal population. In the present world, it is wrong on the part of some scholars to believe that the tribal history is of no significance. This attitude stems from the feeling that tribal people themselves are of no significance. What can be more absurd and more disgusting for the Indian intellectuals than being the victims of this terrible stereotype? So tribal history is primarily confined to oral history with less or no documentary evidences. Now let us see the various definition of tribe. The term tribe derived from the Latin word tribus, denotes an inhabited place. The word tribus was first used to imply three divisions amongst the early Romans. It was rendered into Greeks, who used the word with reference to the tribes of Israel. In English language, the word was used in the 16th century, implying the original Roman meaning as used in the Bible, and it denotes a group of persons forming a community and claiming descent from a common ancestor. For example, it has assumed that each of the 12 divisions of the people of Israel would claim descent from the 12 sons of Jacob. The word tribe implies an aggregate of stocks. A stock implies an aggregate of persons who are supposed to be kindred. It may also denote an aggregate of families which form a community, usually under a government or a chief. The chief may possess an autocratic power over the members of the tribe. This might be recognized as an earliest picture of a community. The term tribes also signifies a primary aggregate of people in a primitive or barbarous condition under a head or a chief. There is no precise or specific definition of a tribe can be given. Various definitions of tribe have been given by various social scientists, but none of them is universally accepted. There are few definitions of tribe given by various scholars which may be examined. Maine says that tribes themselves and all subdivisions of them are conceived by the men who compose them as descended from a single male ancestor. By this definition, Maine has given a one-sided picture of the family, that is patrilineal family. But family is really bilateral and includes descendants from both male and female lines. Maine has also observed in some cases the tribe can hardly be otherwise described than as the group of men and subject to someone chieftain. But there is no hard and fast rules among the different communities of tribe that they should be governed by one chieftain only. According to W.H. Rivers, defines tribe as a social group of a simple kind, the members of which speak a common dialect, have a single government and act together for such common purposes as welfare. The definition of tribe keeps changing along with the change of the socio-economic and political environment within which they are placed and with the subsequent interpretation of the scholars. And there is a paradigm shift in tribal affairs. B.K. Roy Burman said, at the time of India's independence, tribal people in central India were seen as backward, superstitious, native and poor. Even well-meaning people concentrated on relief and improving their physical conditions. But right after independence, the approach towards this community was completely changed. Saxa points out the complexities associated with the conceptualization of tribe. He says that tribes have come to be primarily studied in relation to features and their characteristics of the larger society. Here the focus is on how tribes are getting absorbed into the larger society, the so-called mainstream, by becoming caste, peasant and class and so on. With such conceptualization, the identity of the tribal group or community is indeed put at risk. This is because of the way tribes have been conceptualized in anthropological literature and the reference which tribal society in India is studied. The tribes are primarily seen as a stage and type of society. They represent a society that lacks positive traits of the modern society and thus constitutes a simple, illiterate and backward society. With change in these features on account of education, modern occupation, new technology, etc., tribal society is no longer considered to be tribal. If transformation is in the direction of caste society, then it is described as having become a caste society. If the reference is peasant, then it is posted as peasant society, and if the general direction of transformation is social differentiation, then it is described as differentiated or stratified society and thus ceases to be a tribal society. After 1947, the so-called mainstream had a more intensive contact with the tribal society. The focus shifted to development, protection and participation. There was an assimilative approach to mainstream the backward. Exploring the constitutional paradigm, the Constitution of India does not define scheduled tribes as such. Article 342(1) refers to scheduled tribes as the tribes or the tribal communities or parts of a group within the tribe or tribal communities after the consultation with the governor thereof, which the president may specify by public notification. This ambiguity sometimes leads to confusion in classifying and identifying a tribal population for declaring it ST. Thus, the first specification of STs in relation to a particular state or union territory is by a notified order of the president after consultation with the state government concerned. These notifications can be modified subsequently through an act of parliament. In the year 1951, the Commission for SCs and STs proposed common elements to the definition of who the tribals are as tribal origin, primitive way of life, remote habitation and general backwardness in all respects. The criteria for determining tribal character was set up in the year 1965 by the Lokur Committee, which are indication of primitive tribes, distinctive culture, geographical isolation, shyness of contact with the community at large and backwardness. Now let us look at the perspectives of tribal studies. Tribal studies provides a relevant frame of reference for the diverse perspective and experience of tribal people with the Indian nation. Diverse perspectives are not only entertained but also encouraged to study the tribal issues. It is extremely difficult to understand and complete and get a clear-cut perspective of tribal studies or their society, but it can be analyzed under various perspectives. Let us go into detail one by one. Now, looking at the historical perspective, this means understanding the social, cultural, intellectual and emotional settings that shape people's lives and actions in the past. At any point, different historical actors may have acted on the basis of conflicting beliefs and ideologies. So, understanding diverse perspectives is also a key to historical perspective taking. Das Gupta, she examines the historical perspective of tribes, where she points out that the perceived tribal characteristics, a body of specific attributed characteristics, were products of history, a history in the making of which the colonial officials, the anthropologists and Christian missionaries have participated since the early decade of the 19th century. A range of differences across and within communities thus receded to the background as administrators, anthropologists and missionaries created the tribe. The colonial experience of governance converged and conflicted to constitute the quintessential image of tribe. She also points out that theorization by historians studying tribal protests have remained constricted within the sharp realm of supposition inherited from colonial times. Historical perspective generally deals with the colonial perspective of tribal society. It deals with various aspects of tribal society, culture, economy, tribe caste, interaction, land rights, historical forces, changing social institutions, etc. This approach examines the socio-economic and political conditions during the British period. Regarding the terminology, the British did not define who the tribal is. Rather, they used different terminology to denote the tribal communities of India in different census reports. Colonial administration identified the tribal people in different names such as animist, the census report of 1901, tribal animists or people following tribal religion. This was from the census report of 1911. Hill and forest tribes, and this is from census report of 1921. Primitive tribes from census report of 1931. Backward tribes, Government of India Act 1935, and tribes from the census report of 1941. The British had developed different attitudes towards the tribal communities, and they had enacted number of laws and acts to administer the tribal areas. The introduction of money at the advent of the British period and the imposition of licensing policies over forest and agricultural produces has resulted in a heavy burden for tribal societies in India. These policies were directly or indirectly resulted the exploitation of tribal society by different means. So the British realized the necessity of protecting the tribal people from the outside and from different forms of exploitation. So they developed the policy of isolation to keep the tribal people away from the mainstream society on the ground that isolation would protect the tribal people against hostility and exploitation. They had also kept the tribal areas out of the purview of the general laws and brought under the administration of the collector and adopted separate protective legislation to protect the interest of the tribal people. P.L. Mehta, while he was talking about tribal administration in India in the historical perspective, contests that Simon Commission realized the need for granting tribal population not the right for self-determination or rapid political advancement, but for experienced and sympathetic handling and protection from economic subjugation by their neighbors. Now, after going through the historical perspective, let us move on to the institutional perspective. Institutional perspective aims to study the different dynamics of tribal society within the broader framework of the established institutions. This perspective focuses on the approach of different institutions towards the tribal people and vice versa. Supporters of the institutional perspective believe that government social policies should cover everybody and provide universal benefits and social services for all, including the tribal people. They favor extensive government intervention, both the economy and social affairs, and they believe universal coverage and the long-term provision of benefits. A clear delineation of institutional perspective may also furnish a basis for a focused comparative study of competing perspectives. For instance, the viewpoint of tribal community denied different rights despite the existence of legal protection accentuate the gap between legal image and reality. The institutional perspective also deals with representation of tribal people in different institutions. From an institutional perspective, the problem has been typically defined in terms of their low representation in different institutions. From the perspective of the tribal people, however, the institution is viewed as a hostile environment which does not respect them for who they are and is rigid and resists the tribal way of life. Now, next we are going to discuss the development and planning perspectives. Here, the approach basically deals with how the tribal issues have been addressed by different plans. The Government of India shows that it is committed for the welfare and development of tribal communities. It has adopted number of planned actions at different stages. Consequently, the different challenges of the tribal communities have been addressed by the planning efforts of the government. It basically aims to address the problems of low standards of living, hunger, starvation, malnutrition, illiteracy, disease, poor sanitary condition, housing, etc. The tribal communities have been subjected to exploitation for centuries by people like moneylenders, contractors, officials, etc. Within the broader framework, the Government of India has initiated special schemes and plans for the development of tribal areas. They are communication, education and culture, development of tribal economy and health, housing and water supply. To carry out these programs, tribal development blocks were established on the lines of the community development blocks. The planning process of the government tries to address every aspect of the tribal society, including generating employment opportunities for the tribal communities at different levels. This perhaps addresses the glaring and unacceptable gaps between the economic and human resource development status of the tribal and non-tribal population through different plans and policies such as special central assistance, 5-year plans, integrated tribal development agency, micro projects for primitive tribes, modified areas development approach, tribal subplan, etc. Never before in the history of Indian tribes the change has been fast as during the last 4 decades. More of it can be attributed to post-independence era when planned or induced change came into more prominence. Even the unplanned forces and sources of change in the phase got more active as the communication network expanded, fast paving way to intensive cultural contact. Now let us discuss in detail integration perspective. What is integration perspective? It is an important perspective in tribal studies because it focuses on the full integration of tribal society to the mainstream society within the broader framework of the cultural pluralism of the tribal society. The integration approach to the tribal society has been followed by the then Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, by advocating Panchashil, that is the 5 pillars of tribal development. The 5 fundamental principles are: tribal people should be developed along the lines of their own genius and nothing should be imposed upon them. Respect for tribal rights on land and forest. Minimum investment of outsiders in their administration and development. Administration and launching of the multiple schemes should be avoided and effect should be made within the framework of the social and cultural institution. And evaluation of results should not be by statistics but by the quality of life. So these principles gave importance to tribal pluralism and aimed to integrate the tribal population with the mainstream society. The integration perspective also includes cultural integration. Understanding of Indian culture demands inclusion of tribal heritage, which has been so wide and rich in terms of diverse parameters. In the requirement of holistic framework, the cultural components, that is the sociological, ideological or ideational and technological, need to be reviewed in interconnectedness to arrive at the depth of culture. Art, overtly speaking, is an integral part of material perspective of culture. This is supported through various expressions, illustrations and other surface reflexes. But then the other inner core of art, especially when we search for symbolic meanings, has most of the time its root in sociological and ideological dimensions of a way of life. Leonard Adam stated the primitive art, and where tribal art is well included, is a part of culture linked up with history of culture and the people. It has been observed that art is the faculty to express conscious processes by means created by the artist himself in such a manner that they may be perceived by our sense organ. In this general sense, language, song, music and dance are art just as well as painting, sculpture and ornamentation. The graphic and plastic arts in the narrow sense of the term result from ability of making conscious processes visible in permanent materials. Now, after discussing various perspectives, let us move on to one more important perspective, that is stratification perspective. This perspective explores the internal differentiation of tribal society as well as their relation with the caste and mainstream society. In case of tribes, the position and nature of stratification are significantly different than the one observed among the caste society. Certain ethics of caste ideology are basically missing in case of tribes, but the growing situation of cultural contact has made the members of many tribes aware of the new rules and ways of social stratification. Making caste as their reference groups, these people have imbibed certain additional norms determining in social distance, interaction and relationship. Such a trend has given rise to new social formations and socio-economic arrangements of the people. The factors born of cultural contact reshape the social behavior in the tribe, caste and inter-tribe and intra-tribe perspective. More hold of conventional rules, however, seems to operate in the intra-tribe situation. Therefore, two broad dimensions of stratification in tribal society can be delineated. Firstly, it is to be seen in the background of caste versus tribe and tribe versus tribe, and secondly in the relevance of intra-tribe setting. To put it differently, the tribal society is not organized on the basis of the endogamous structure of the caste that is prevalent in the Hindu society. The tribal social system, on the contrary, is structured on the basis of inner differentiation among the tribes themselves. This perspective believes that tribal society no more remains static. As a result, tribal society has moved from homogeneity, the hallmark of tribal society, to considerable heterogeneity. The tribal society has been differentiated in terms of their occupation, as some tribes practice agriculture or in trade and commerce, and others work as landless agricultural laborers, quarry and mine workers, stone crushers and plantation and industrial workers, and some of them also work as government servants, politicians, etc. There have also been differences of religion, ideology, values, political orientation, way of life, etc. among the members of the tribal community. So now moving on to the gender perspective. So when we look at from a gender perspective, the concern here is there is more focus on women in tribal studies, which has been recent. It emerged out of general interest and concern with women's issues the world over. The value system governing its larger Indian society has been in the process of change. With this, there has been a shift in the image of tribal women, who are thus invariably portrayed as enjoying a better social status than their counterparts in the larger Indian society. Tribal society in the post-independence era has been witness to to unprecedented change, which has been most marked in respect of culture, modes of making a living, and social differentiation. They are bearing on women's status in society and gender relations, which has been far reaching. Studies on tribal women have been few, and these lack depth and comprehensiveness. In the year 1987, the Indian Anthropological Society published a region-wide survey of tribal women. The survey points out that the subject of tribal women has generally been ignored, and when studies do exist, they are brief or disposed of summarily. Except in some of the words of Elwin, Führer, Heimerdorf, and some others, there has been no explicit discussion of the status of women in tribal society. Even in these works, the assessment of the status of women has been far from uniform. While some say that tribal society is generally assigned high status to women, others argue that women's position in tribal society is the same as that in other societies. In other words, this perspective examines the position, involvement, participation, and role of tribal women in various dynamics of tribal life. Now, moving on to the administration perspective. This perspective deals with the approach to administer the tribal communities and tribal areas. It has been believed that the term ST is a colonial construction and is an administrative and legal category. It is taken as an administrative practice and endowed it with its own socio-political meaning in the independent India. Early interest in tribal studies had, among other things, a political administrative need by colonial administrative scholars. Within this broader framework, the colonial government as well as the post-independent government has adopted a number of provisions for the administration of tribes as well as tribal areas. For instance, the colonial government enacted separate laws for the administration of tribal areas in the pretext of protecting the tribal people from exploitation. In the same vein, the post-independent government has also declared certain areas as scheduled areas for the sound administration. Now next, talking about the anthropological perspectives. Despite various allied and political definitions of the tribes, it is well known that the tribal studies have been and still remain the main domain of the anthropological studies in India. However, the bias in anthropological theory in general tribal studies in particular has in recent times not only raised questions about the relevance of anthropological theory itself, but also its futility for tribal studies. The word tribal in the Indian context, as most of us are aware, seem to be misnomer. It has political and racial connotations. Nonetheless, whatever the racial and ethnic affiliations and the origin of the present state of these tribals, the question remains that do the theories and methods devised by the anthropologists really work to gauge the tribal conditions? It is these and other misconceptions and the role of oral traditions, particularly folklore, which can play in correcting them. Anthropological perspective maintains that a tribe is a social group, the members of which lives in a common territory, have a common dialect, uniform social organization, and possess cultural homogeneity, having a common ancestor, political organization, and religious pattern. But perhaps it would be very difficult to find many tribal groups in India who possess all these characteristics. Again, a number of tribal groups are recognized by the government and they are the scheduled tribes. But since all the tribal and analogous social formations are not considered, it always refers to scheduled tribe population which is recognized by the government. The number of actual tribal population must be much more than what is mentioned as scheduled tribe population. In this context, Heimerdorf has rightly developed the perspective in which he held that Indian anthropologists interpreting tribal culture to their fellow countrymen and to create thereby a climate of public opinion favorable to the growth of the tribal life. Now we are going to discuss about the comparative perspective. Despite various allied and political definition of tribes, it is well known that tribal studies have been and still remain the main domain of the anthropological studies in India. However, the bias in anthropological theory in general and tribal studies in particular has in recent times not only raised questions about the relevance of anthropological theory itself, but also its futility for tribal studies. The word tribal in the Indian context, as most of us are aware, seems to be a misnomer. It has political and racial connotations. However, whatever racial and ethnic affiliations and the origin of the present state, these tribals, the question remains that do the theories and methods devised by the anthropologists really works in the tribal conditions? It is these and other misconceptions and the role oral traditions, particularly folklore, can play in correcting them. Anthropological perspective maintains that a tribe is a social group, the members of which live in a common territory, have a common dialect, uniform social organization, and possess cultural homogeneity, having a common ancestor, political organization, religious pattern. But perhaps it would be very difficult to find many tribal groups in India who possess these characteristics. Again, a number of tribal groups are recognized by the government and they are scheduled tribes. But since all the tribal and analogous social formations are not considered, it always refers to scheduled tribe population which is recognized by the government. The number of actual tribal population must be much more than what is mentioned as scheduled tribe population. In this context, Hammendorf has rightly developed the perspective in which he held the Indian anthropologists have the important task of interpreting tribal culture in their fellow countrymen and to create thereby a climate of public opinion favorable to the growth of the tribal life. Comparative perspective also forms an important approach to understand tribal society. Comparative approach of studying tribal society aims to understand the different aspects of tribal society in a comparative way. It aims to examine the commonalities and differences of tribal society with other sections of the society, as well as the indigenous people of the different countries of the world. It studies heterogeneous cultures like tribal and non-tribal cultures, tribal culture and culture of converted proselytized tribal and tribal communities. The comparative perspective here does not mean to refer a cross-cultural study alone. It also refers to the perspective gained from the study of other aspects of life of the tribal communities. This also makes an attempt to study the tribal society in a comparative perspective to see how the present day tribal communities differ from the description contained in the old ethnography. Now let us discuss the ethnographic perspective. Much of the tribal ethnography has the underlying assumptions that the tribal social formation always represents a primitive inferior exchange of human existence. Godlier, who considers tribes to be a type of society and a stage of evolution, both suggest that the term primitive features a combination of both positive and negative traits. The negative traits include the absence of development, non-industrialized, non-urban, lacking economic specialization, or the presence of these traits to a lesser degree, less civilized, low level of technological achievement, traditional, simple tools, small scale, and etc. In both cases, primitive societies are considered to be those absent from civilized societies, societies in which social relations are based primarily on kinship, with all pervasive religion, in which cooperation for common goals is frequent. But in India, where tribal social formation, that is the social formation, unaffected by caste ideology and organizational framework in varying degree and having little or only tangential relations with state-like political institutions primarily based on organized and ideologically legitimated coercive power, coexisted with non-tribal social formations, the primitive image does not always hold good. Now, moving on to the demographic perspective. Demographic perspective of tribal studies is largely based on the demographic characteristics of the tribal society. Tribal demography is the science of tribal population who is mainly concerned with the size, distribution, structure and change of tribal population. Size refers to the number of units or persons in the population. Distribution is the spatial arrangement of the population in given time. Structure refers to the distribution of population among its sex and age groups. Change refers to the growth or decline of the population or one of its structural units. The components of change are birth, death and migration. Now moving on to the interdisciplinary perspective. This perspective suggests that interdisciplinary relevance of tribal studies. The scope of tribal studies is not confined to a particular discipline. It has widened up the horizon to different disciplines across the academia. This is based on the fact that the past decade has witnessed the proliferation of scholarship around the topic tribes. Tribes have been the mutual interest of anthropologists, historians, political scientists and other disciplines in modern scholarship. In recent years, they have discovered fruitful opportunities for intellectual exchange and even collaboration in their effort to understand continuity and change in tribal societies. Historians and political scientists have turned to the concepts and tools of anthropology to examine certain questions that are directly or indirectly related to diversified democratic nature of the tribal society. It is evident that it is extremely difficult to study the tribal society from a particular perspective. Rather, it is essential to explore the various perspectives to understand the tribal society in India. It is also important to mention here the complexities associated with the ranking of these perspectives as they are relevant in studying the tribal society in their own way. Now, to sum up, the definition of tribe has been given by different scholars differently looking at the different dimensions of tribal society. But there is not a single definition which is comprehensive and more appropriate to address and define this community, since it is very difficult to bring out an appropriate meaning and definition of tribe which would be applicable universally. In simple terms, we can say tribe is a community who has developed their distinct social and cultural identity. If you compare and contrast various perspectives of tribal studies, the anthropological perspective has provided base to the tribal studies, and it could be considered as parent perspective amongst all other perspectives, since it is the oldest and broader perspective compared to all other perspectives of tribal studies. So learners, hope you have gone through the first unit, and this week you will be going to learn this second unit in detail. Hope you have understood and listened the video, watched the video carefully. Thank you.